I appreciate members from the community joining us. As you know, all Reston Association meetings are open, and I know my peers on the board very much welcome your involvement and participation during member comments. So what I'd like to do is call the meeting to order, and we have a long agenda today. We've got a very, very important item that we'll discuss at length, and that's the Tetra Lake House independent review. I'd like to ask for either additions to the agenda or approval to the agenda as presented. Do I get a second to the agenda?
I second.
All in favor? I'm assuming that means that we're going to pretty much stick to the time on the agenda.
Strive for that for sure.
Can we do that? Appreciate that. I'm going to count on you all to keep me to the time. The minutes are under item C. Do I have a motion to approve the meeting minutes of June the 14th?
I motion to approve. I second.
Second. All in favor? Excellent.
Look at that. 3 items. Bang,
Three
bang, bang.
items.
You just
And let's
saved
see.
10 minutes, my man.
I've got 7.5 minutes to spare.
Bang,
Very
bang,
good.
bang.
At this time, I would welcome comments from the community. This is a meeting of the governance committee. As with all RA meetings, we offer an opportunity up front for the community to weigh in and provide comments. Once we've received the comments, then it'll be a discussion amongst the committee itself. So I've got...
Mike, are you going to do what you did last time and allow comments after sections when we hear what you said?
No, unless I get a motion from the committee and the committee discusses it and approves. The normal process is to provide comments in advance. And then we'll go into a meeting of the committee. You're certainly welcome to observe.
Thanks.
I'll make a motion that we allow comments as Tammy recommends and limit them to no more than 1 minute.
Do I get a second?
I'll second. I would say, though, it has to be after, well, yeah, I second. It's fine.
Okay, discussion?
Limited discussion.
So, I think we want to avoid debating with the community. We need to work on what we need to work on. So the input is good, but we can't engage in debates. It's just not productive.
I agree, no debate, 1 minute commentary per person. It will enrich the overall discussion and content of what we have, in my opinion.
I apologize, Ray. I'll set a timer if that's the direction you so choose to go in. I would hope that we would adhere to the timer that is being heard in the audience so that you stay on.
But I'm not suggesting after each bullet.
Right.
I'm suggesting towards the end.
Okay, so
Yeah.
let's get agreement
Yeah, 'cause
on
otherwise we're debating.
when we would permit that in order that we're all in agreement. So when best to provide that opportunity to the
I would say
community?
between H and I.
I mean, I would presume that that's the only item of significant concern.
People may want to comment after I as well, but keep it to that 1 minute thing. I would agree with that.
So between H and I, so the establishing the criteria for selecting
I think
firm?
that would encompass everything involving what we're talking about today, about the RFP, Tetra Lake House, et cetera. Lump that all in between H and I. Am I making sense
I agree.
here?
Yeah. So member comment would be added between H and I for 1 minute.
So you'll be making decisions, even though you've made decisions, you're going to hear more comments
Well,
after those decisions.
That's the thing. I mean, we will already, if there's a
I'm open to
decision.
an alternative.
I mean, so otherwise we are, so that's the challenge with this. So we need the input, and then we have to make decisions. But if we're going back and forth, then we're going back and forth. And it's a discussion with the community and not a working session for us.
I see your point, but I think they may pick up on some things that we haven't picked up on during the discussion, and we may want to make a slight alteration at the end. Well, I'm not saying we will or we won't. We might. I want to be open to it.
To a different decision after, so you want to redo.
Or a slight change to something. I'm not saying alter your decision altogether. But, we're all intelligent people. If somebody comes up with some things we didn't think about, I'd like to incorporate it.
I say between H and I, 1 minute.
That's fine with me.
H and I?
So as long as we can.
Ray?
It's fine with me.
We will have
All in
made
favor?
decisions.
1 minute?
Okay.
1 minute.
Very good. So Tammy, we will provide another opportunity between item H and I, 1 minute. I've got a list here. I'll go through the list, and then if there are others in the community that would like to address the governance committee, by all means, raise your hand and I'll add you to the list. First on the list is John Hanley.
You, Michael, Ray, Kate. I'm talking about the question of...
I hate to say this.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I apologize.
John Hanley, 11243, Handlebar Road, 20191. I'm sorry.
And you're representing yourself or an organization?
Myself.
Okay, excellent.
I find it hard to accept that an organization has arguably shown less than professional judgment over a questionable property purchase, which has caused considerable financial harm to our community, should now actively be considering additional significant expenditures on external consulting companies to find out what went wrong. This is not a particularly complicated issue. It's not rocket science. What it requires is evaluation by a small committee whose members possess adequate financial, real estate, and construction knowledge that can start at the beginning of the matter, establish how it developed, ascertain how it was managed, and finally identify any organizational shortcomings. The same committee can then recommend what RA may need to do to put things right systemically going forward. Surely there are more than sufficient open-minded RA members of stature who are professionally qualified to carry out such a review at little or no cost to RA and its members. Let us bear in mind that the costs of the Tetra Lake House project will continue to be felt for many years to come. In my opinion, a prime objective, if not the prime objective of this proposed exercise, should be to minimize ongoing costs and expenditures associated with the project and its badly needed review, not to spend more money. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Appreciate your comments and thanks for coming out. Erwin?
Good evening to you all.
Good evening.
Erwin Flashman. I live at 1327 Buttermilk Lane.
We're recording this, and
Yes,
so if you could just talk a little bit louder, that would be helpful.
Okay, I would like to speak to you this evening about two matters, and to comment in response to Mr. Hanley's comments. And that first thing I will do is simply to say that my understanding is that any group of residents could put together a response to the RFP and submit it, and you would be forced to consider it as long as it met all of the criteria that were initially set for a submission. And they could offer very easily to do it for free. And so I don't see any problem with the present construction of how this is established, assuming my assumptions are correct.
I believe, just to address that question, I believe that's the case. I think that it was open, and we were open to the possibility that there would be a number of very competent individuals in the community that would get together and prepare a proposal.
Okay. I would like to give you copies of 3, and 2. I came this evening for the purpose of addressing the issue of the Code of Ethics. I originally had intended to give a much more detailed, this is 6 pages, but I had intended to also make detailed comments on the proposal itself. These are more general comments. And I asked that you read them carefully. I will not read them to you now. I do not believe that this version is anywhere near where it should be. I think it is deficient in many ways, and one of them is the confusion that occurs because of the apparent intended coverage of employees, board members, volunteers, consultants, and who knows what else, because the language that is used is so broad as to not understand exactly who is covered. And by covering this diverse group of people, some of whom are already covered by a handbook for employees and by rules and regulations and subject to a variety of actions which may be probatory or disciplinary, including up to dismissal, it makes no sense to me to try to cover all of them under the same roof. They are different in terms of their relationship to the RA, they are different in terms of their authorities, and they are different in terms of what they do. And you cannot cover them all under one roof. I think that presents a disaster in the making, and I think that this should be rewritten completely. There are other issues. I do not believe that the Ethics Committee should be composed of 5 board members, or 3. I think the maximum number of board members should be 1. And that function should be liaison, nothing else.
I appreciate all the time and effort. As you know, the Code of Ethics, the drafting, and the support by the board, by the community is of real importance to me. And so we'll read your comments carefully. We've already had some general discussion, if you want, about extending the timeline in order to seriously consider the comments that we do receive and ensure that the Code of Ethics that we come up with is reflective of the values of the board and the community.
Yeah.
So,
therefore, I would like to recommend that you postpone any further action on this code without receiving additional input from the community and consider having it rewritten. Seriously consider it.
I've been on vacation, so I have not been able to tally quite yet who all has responded, but seeing what you've created here, I think is a significant contribution. We did talk about, at the last board meeting, ways that we might solicit more input through focus groups and polls and whatnot, and we'll have more discussion about that.
I'm aware of that. I think the use of focus groups and other input other than comment on the document itself at this point would be a waste of time. The document is not ready for that. It is far too crude, in my judgment, to be presented for that kind of evaluation.
Well, thank you, Erwin. Let us take a look at your notes and then more to come. Thank you. Dennis Hayes.
Dennis Hayes, 1398 Old Quincy Lane. Thank you again for all you do and all the work you put in on these different projects and programs. I very much appreciate your making available the draft RFP. And one of the things that struck me in reading through it is you're quoting from the bylaws, and one of the articles you mentioned is that it is the policy of the Reston Association to encourage maximum volunteer member participation in the affairs of the association. Well, here we are. I think this is important because the issues that you deal with do not just concern this committee or the board. They concern every member of the association. And towards that end, and first off, I had a second point which dealt with non-traditional firms, but it sounds like that's resolved, so thank you very much. We're past that. But I would like to propose an additional sentence under the section project overview, first paragraph. I'll read it. The consultant will meet with individuals and organizations from Reston to ensure the concerns of the community are addressed in the review. I think this is an area that inadvertently was left out here. It's a good document, but clearly it is in everyone's interest that the community be involved in this process, and I think this is a way you could demonstrate that that is the will of the committee and the board to do so.
Let me get the reference
Right.
again. It's project overview.
It's under project overview at the very end of the first paragraph. This would be an add-on.
Could you repeat what you said for me?
Good. The consultant will meet with individuals and organizations from Reston, comma, to ensure the concerns of the community are addressed in the review. Period.
Thank you.
That's all I got today.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Very good. That's all I have on the list. Is there anyone else? Mr. Dean?
I should be, because as a matter of fact, I sent you an email and you acknowledged the
You did. Yep.
I'm James Dean. My partner and I live at 11195 Square Sail Court, Reston, Virginia, 20191. I want to agree with the comments of my 3 RA members that spoke earlier. I'd like to emphasize that we would like to see RA to more wisely spend our money to make good investments. But when you have RA members that are perfectly capable and willing to do some of these functions for you, you should mine that expertise. In my opinion, RA has some of the smartest, most knowledgeable, most experienced people anywhere in the country. And I think all too often we don't take advantage of that, especially as it regards the Tetra review and also regarding the Code of Ethics. The other thing that, well, and actually, real quick, I think RA needs to build into all of its meetings a member comment period at the opening and halfway through. That's just a good organizational standpoint. Many RA members don't feel that we're being heard, and that would be something that you could do to maybe alleviate some of that. The other piece, last year there were district meetings. We haven't seen district meetings yet this year, but if you wanted to get feedback on the Code of Ethics, if you also wanted to give people a chance to give you their opinions on the Tetra issues, as well as you're getting ready to, I would assume you're getting ready to review your 2017 budget and assessment. And I strongly feel that that's one of those things that you ought to get member input from as well. So I'd like to encourage that you bring back district meetings and that you schedule that in a timely manner. But thank you.
Thank you. And I did receive your notes. I shared them with our secretary and
Been in meetings all
CEO.
day long,
And so
yeah.
she will include them with these. And John, you were speaking from notes. Did you want to provide a copy too, Kate? You did?
Yes.
Done. Good. Anyone else here that would like to share thoughts before the committee goes into its deliberations? No? Okay. Item number E, the timeline for Tetra, the Lake House Independent Review. Just a general comment from me, and then I'll hear from my peers on the committee. We want to make sure that we do this right. I would like to see it done as soon as possible, but I think we want to get it done right. And so that should drive the timeline. So any comments from my peers?
I think we realized pretty quickly that it was maybe a little too aggressive, since almost immediately people went on vacation, and which sort of made it difficult.
I tried.
You did, and it was admirable, but there was nobody to respond, so, I mean, so I would say that making sure, as you said, that we have time to do it properly is going to be way more important than rushing through and
Absolutely.
not getting it done properly.
The comment I have is, so according to this, we will get the bids in on the 12th. And we're going to have a special meeting on the 16th to start talking about. It says to review and select firm for the, you mean we're going to try to select it then? So the deadline's the 12th. We assume we get them on the 12th. This is for us and the community members that have been selected to the panel.
That's enough.
I'm not sure that's enough time, and I'm also not sure it's going to be done in one meeting, because where in this do we as a group decide on the factors that we are looking at the bids about? So if each of us have a different focus, I mean, we all can look at the same words and read very different things, and I think our history shows that we always don't agree on things. I think it's tight. I think it's real tight, because I'm not sure that 7 people in one meeting are going to be able to decide on the criteria we're using, decide on the firm at the same time, because I have a feeling, and I hope there's a lot of debate on that. That's my thought, is I think it's tight.
Don't you, I mean, I would think, well, I don't know, maybe some will immediately fall out because they're astronomical in price, and you're like, okay, that's like off the table altogether. Or did
On
we?
the agenda was criteria tonight to just
Okay.
begin the conversation, so that you're not going in blind to it, so at least
Right,
kind of
okay.
begin that conversation.
I would just say, though, that we have to be really careful that the governance committee isn't driving this train, that this panel of community members, that input is driving this train, and we step as far back from this as we can. And so if it's always board governance, if we're doing this, kind of I want the 3 people that are selected to be integral parts of this process. In fact, lead it, perhaps. That's just my.
Suggested edits to the timeline. Just out of curiosity, I mean, if you looked at it, where do you want to add to the timeline? Because at the moment, there's an August 23rd meeting to appoint the firm. Now, we already have something going on that night anyway. We have budget that will be presented. The draft of the 17 budget from staff will be presented for comment. So the question is, where do you want to add time? I'm open. I've got calendar in front of me. Tell me what you'd like to do.
It might be useful to identify those items that require some additional time, and then
we can go back and work the
then we
calendar.
can go back and work that. The Board Operations Committee is meeting on July the 11th, or met yesterday. On the 28th, I'm assuming that we will have made a decision about who the 3 community members are. Is that not correct?
Have we gotten any?
We've gotten 4 thus far. We might have gotten some more in today. I don't know. I've literally been in back-to-back meetings today, so I haven't had a chance to.
And it's still open. Those that are interested.
5 o'clock on Friday.
5 o'clock on Friday.
And I'm assuming that the operations committee is using the skill sets that we're asking for from the RFP to use as interview questions and for the selection of these panel members.
It's based on what the board voted on June the 23rd.
Those skill sets.
The point being, on July 28th, we'll know who the 3
Panel members are.
3 additional members that will join this committee. And that raises another point that I know I've talked to a few about, and that is, who best to chair this committee. I chair the governance committee. That does not necessarily mean that I must chair the Code of Conduct Committee, nor this review panel. And I think that it's something that this governance committee should discuss, and we should talk about a process to identify a chair and then recommend to the board whatever our position might be.
For this item, do you want to continue to talk about the timeline? And I just heard Sherry say, which was a good point, that you would want to include the 3 people who were selected to help determine criteria. The next meeting of this body would be Tuesday, August the 9th. So they would have been appointed, and we could immediately, add to, for their August meeting, sit down and talk with them about criteria for selection. Bids are, in theory, the deadline is August 12th, so that should give some time to invite those people in to have a conversation.
I think that's
just a suggestion.
I think that makes very good sense. I like the suggestion to bring those that the board has appointed to support this committee to be part of a discussion around the criteria. Doesn't mean that we here shouldn't talk about the criteria. Eve, I think you shared some. You want the thing to be affordable. You want to make sure that the firm or individuals that come forward have the requisite skills, right?
So I like the idea of asking those 3 to join us on the 9th. I think that's a great idea and a good use of that time. And I think the chair of that committee should probably be decided by the 7 people. And my sense is that it probably should be one of them, not one of us.
So the 7 are the 3 individuals
And us.
plus us, and
But I think that group should decide. They should talk about it on the 9th, perhaps. They could talk about who might chair that and have that discussion then.
There might be somebody who will sort of naturally float up
yeah.
as a...
So we don't know who they are yet, so you might have a natural person in that group. So I think we should discuss that on the 9th as well.
Ray, does that make sense?
I have several things. I'm just waiting for things to calm down a little bit.
Are we in agreement on the August 9th? Does that make sense? So we focus the August 9th meeting on 2 things, bringing together the entire committee, plus establishing the criteria, or the final criteria. Did you capture that, Kate?
Yes.
Great.
I'm okay with that.
All right. So Ray.
Yes, as far as the RFP itself,
Can we stick to the timeline first and then get into the RFP, just to, or is it, yeah?
If you want to handle it that way, that's fine.
Yeah, just to bring this to closure. Is there anything else on the timeline that's of concern?
Does it still seem pretty compressed?
What's the date? The 12th is a Tuesday?
The 12th of August is
Friday.
is a Friday,
That's what it's been.
and then the 16th, so they come in, and the thought process is to push that out immediately to the group of 7, so they immediately get those, and they've got time to review on the 16th. An alternate date, because the 23rd of August is when the special meeting is.
I mean, you can leave it like that and we can just work really hard to meet those deadlines. I mean, looking at the calendar, if we're trying to do this all by the 23rd, there's really no other time.
I've got a conflict now on the 16th. I'm going to be out of town, and so we're going to have to sort out how best to deal with that. I could certainly call in.
You could just have you call in if everybody else can make that date.
Yeah.
I'm concerned about what I hear, that the schedule is a little bit compressed and we're being forced to do things quickly as opposed to doing them right. Now, if you all are comfortable with that, then I'm comfortable as well, but,
Well, I mean, there's nothing to say that we couldn't slip the date, adjust the date, right? I mean, if
We
we
can set a
needed to.
tentative schedule, but based on subsequent discussions we're going to have, we may decide that we need to change the schedule.
I mean, if we have 2 things to look at, that's one thing. If we have 26 things to look at, that's a whole
yeah,
different animal.
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, I think that we should really be driven by what's in front of us.
I mean, I think this is a good, I would just put the 12th or this 16th
Add the 9th?
in pencil.
Right.
Yeah, the 9th, yes. The 12th, yes. The 16th, hopeful.
Yeah.
Yeah, Kate, if you could just note that I'm not going to,
Yep, sure did.
fantastic.
Got it.
Very good. So anything else on the schedule, or is that pretty much take care of that? We will, this is basically it, but we'll be flexible based on
Right.
what we learn as we go forward.
So is it without objection, so I can just capture for the minutes that you're comfortable with the schedule as amended? 'Cause we
Without
did make an
objection?
amendment.
Yes.
Yes.
Great. Ray?
Okay, on the RFP itself, a lot of work went into it. I commend the people who spent all the time in putting this together. I didn't participate heavily in it myself. Sherry, Mike, whoever else was involved, I appreciate that. I like what we have. However, this piece from Terry Maynard that I think are all familiar with is absolutely extraordinary. It gets to the questions I'd like the firms to look into. This is not just a finance, accounting, budget, overrun, what happened issue. It's not a prosecution, but it is an investigation. And whoever we choose, there's a lot of people that can do the accounting, finance stuff. It's a real skill to get people who can do the investigative stuff. And to me, that is absolutely paramount. And the issues and questions raised by Terry may not be all-encompassing. It may not be the best thing, but it's far and away the best thing we've got in front of us that's been proposed to us or that we've come up with. And given that it's the best that we have and it's an excellent piece, I want it to be an addendum to the RFP so that everybody who's making an offer on this understands exactly what we want answered, exactly the issues totally. A lot of the inside people here are going to have an advantage of what's going on and what we're looking for. I want some of the people who are expert at this that may be from DC, Bethesda, somewhere else, and totally independent, to also have the same level of knowledge, expertise, and to delve into this the way we want it delved into. And I think the piece that Terry wrote is exceptional, and I want to see it attached as part of the RFP. I want to stress again, as I did earlier, I consider this primarily an investigative RFP. Of course you have to know accounting, of course they're going to have to know finance, but most of the people who do this kind of work, they know that. And I have a question on the proposed committee and the vote, and at the end of the day, how we're going to select this particular firm. We have 4 board members, and we're talking about 3 community advisors here. Does that mean we're going to have 7 people voting? Does that mean that we're going to have 7 people discussing it and the advisors are going to be just that, advisors? And put it to the BGC, 4 people to stand up and take the responsibility for this? What will be, I understand community involvement as much as anybody, I think. I seek it and I listen to it, I think, as much as anybody, and I will on this. I'm wondering if we say members of the community are on a committee or a working group or whatever it happens to be with the 4 of us. Do we have 7 people voting and deciding? Do we have 7 people discussing? And then when the final decision is made, it's made by the 4 of us? Or how exactly is that going to work? Because this is going to come up. We might as well take care of it right now.
I'm glad that you raised it. I think it's very appropriate to raise. My thought, and this is coming from the discussion we had at the board, is that it would be the Board Governance Committee plus the 3 individuals from the community that would form a committee. And that committee would discuss and debate the issues, and they would provide a recommendation to the board. It would be the entire committee making the recommendation and not just the members of the Board Governance Committee. So does that address a concern you might
Well,
have?
it's one opinion on how it should be. I haven't decided myself how I think about it. I'd like to hear what you 2 think.
I just kind of presumed it would be the committee as a whole digging in, including the 3, working it, and then the committee would make a recommendation to the full board, and the full board would make it, I can imagine it taking a couple of tracks, like, here's the top 2, here's the, it could be, and then the board would debate between the top 2. I don't know that we have driven it beyond that.
Yeah, I guess my assumption was that the 7 would then make this committee, and the 7 would then vote, and the 7 would have to come to a decision on who they were recommending to the larger board, not for debate at the board, but come with the recommendation to the board. And however long that takes us to figure that out, it's up to this committee to come with that recommendation. So I would hope we wouldn't be in this is our first choice, this is our second. Hopefully there is a clear one that we can recommend to the board.
So there is a 7-person committee that will determine how we're going to make the selection and then make the selection.
Well, it sounds like in the conversation we just had that we want the 3 additional members to contribute to the criteria, and I'm frankly comfortable with that. And so when we get together on, what was the date?
And that criteria is set pre us seeing the bids. So it's not like we saw the bids and then we set the criteria. This is pre seeing the bids.
We're going to set the criteria before we see the bids.
In fact, they're based on the RFP, I think.
Right.
I don't know how else we would do it.
I just want to be clear. I don't want somebody coming back later on and saying, we violated this, we violated that.
Right.
I want it to be very clear.
Yep.
And choosing these 3 people, this is going to be a crucial decision.
Yeah.
It's going to be a difficult decision.
So,
as you're talking about that, I'm wondering, since this is supposed to be kind of community focused, and the member of the board, I remember you saying, the board's got to be as far away from this as we can be, as independent as possible, is why we have 3 community members and not 5.
Now you're going, because the board made a
It's just too
decision.
big.
Board already,
right.
well,
Yeah.
first of all, the board has already decided, so that's already done.
Yeah, as you were saying that, I'm like,
But
No, we debated that at length.
the
and
size
so-
of committees gets to be, I guess I'm a tiny bit, so I totally could see it going down a path that says, okay, we are really happy with this company or this whatever that is.
Consortium or-
Whatever, and that's the one we're recommending, okay, the one. But I could also see it coming down to a final 2 and saying that we wanted to advance those so that the full board could also participate in that decision. We are a board of 9, not,
ultimately the board must.
Right,
Make the
the board is
decision.
on the hook for the decision. And so
Absolutely.
if, I just,
I think written in here as well into the RFP was we as this committee could ask for best and finalists from the final 2 or 3. Say there's 10 people that come in. we have the right to ask for a best and finalist presentation of these companies too, which would then push our timeline because we never made.
You know, we could do that.
But we have the right to do that if I
Can we
remember
back that up?
correctly.
I don't think we're going to get 10, but let's say we get 10. And that is a very difficult process to go through 10 written proposals, and a lot of proposal writing is a very big skill. And say we like 3 people. I, for one, like to sit down and talk to people. I like to see it in their eye. I like to feel it.
Interview.
I like them to make a presentation that I feel really comfortable. I don't like just picking, hey, this sounds really good.
I agree.
This guy sounds great. I like to have, it's been a long time, but in my days in federal contracting, where you invite 2, 3, 4, whatever the number is, and let them know in advance what you're looking for, a list of questions, whatever, and have them interviewed individually.
We have
And
the right to do
then
that.
come in with a final proposal at that time.
So that argues in favor of giving more space between the criteria and...
That's why I'm saying this is a discussion that we need to go back on the timeline.
Absolutely, yep.
But I think it's important that the 7 people are going to have detailed conversation. We're all going to have different questions, we're all going to have different concerns.
So I do panel interviews,
But,
kind of
yeah.
thing. Yeah, sure.
I mean, you wouldn't hire somebody without physically interviewing them. This is a crucial matter. So, yeah, all the stuff in writing is important. But meeting with them, getting to know them, getting a feel for them and what they know and what they
That's why
can
the
do
16th
is, to me, extremely crucial. So somewhere in this timeline, I don't know if it's in there already, but if it's not, that's when I'm talking about some of the stuff that we have on the
Sure.
agenda today. Maybe we need to adjust the timeline.
Yep.
A
But-
suggestion to address what you're saying is maybe we add to that August 9 meeting conversation with the people who've been selected. Let's talk about the timeline and make an adjustment, and maybe what happens on the 23rd of August is not so much the selection of the firm, but the adjustment of the timeline, and get the board's approval on a revised timeline. That way
Not
you're...
necessarily a revised timeline only. Everything's moving in parallel. You have the timeline, yes, but we're also in the process of narrowing down the field here. So it may be that August 23rd, we've already decided we're down to 3 people that we like. Everybody else is out.
That's, yeah, I mean, I think
Okay.
it's pretty common for, you know, some just,
Right. Are we in agreement on this?
Yep.
Okay. Let me flip back. On the RFP, are we in agreement that we attach Terry Maynard's piece as an addendum?
I want to be clear on the timeline piece, on what we're in agreement on, is that, so for the minutes, for sake of the minutes. So without objection, you agree to what? What did you guys say, yes, you agree? That there could be more than one firm that's advanced to the board?
we did say that, yes.
Okay.
And we also
We
said
would
that,
interview.
We would interview, which would
We-
probably extend the timeline, but
yeah, we want to consider possibility of panel interviews. And
but that would be a criteria that you,
right,
Right.
you know, panel interview
Yeah.
would be part of the criteria that we would,
and that would add to the timeline. We would have to schedule, you know, a couple hours or whatever in order to do those panel interviews.
super bit.
And so that means we're going to shift the whole timeline out.
I think this is a pretty common thing.
Yeah, no, but
And for sake of, just because we are picking up all conversations
sorry.
on that microphone, just so you know. So, one of the things that's important for me to understand for putting together the minutes and understanding how you're going forward, you did just approve a timeline without objection. Now we're going back to the conversation, worthy conversation. Do we need to add time and shift it? Or do we wait until August the 9th to have the conversation with the rest of your group to talk about adding dates, which is absolutely normal in the contract world of bringing people in, you know, who's going to be down selected, who do you want to hear from?
Right.
So When would you like me to add that to the timeline of things to do on the 9th with the full group when we're talking about the criteria?
Yes, because I think that, I think that we've agreed, we need some flexibility in the schedule, but we are not yet prepared to say what that is going to look like. On the 9th, we'll discuss the criteria with the full committee.
Right.
And we will be able to talk about maybe more comprehensively the schedule at that time.
Right. So we'll have the timeline on the agenda on the 9th.
So they're going to consider the timeline, the criteria, and who should chair.
Exactly, those will be the
Okay,
three.
great.
Yes.
And, we should, in terms of related to the timeline is, do we envision the need for panel interviews? We're frankly, I don't think we're going to know that.
I don't think we know yet.
Until after
We only have
August the 12th when the proposals come in.
Okay.
My guess is that the percentages favor that we will need panel interviews, so we ought to be thinking along.
Absolutely. I think it's a good point.
Typically, what we've done is, like for fiscal committee, it's been the entire fiscal committee that's been asked to participate in the interview. I'm not suggesting that's what we typically do. So your whole group of 7 should participate in that interview process as opposed to just a panel.
Yeah.
It's my recommendation.
Right.
I think that's.
Yeah, no,
that's what I
absolutely.
Okay.
Once the committee is struck, I think that it's essential that the committee commits to work together to see it through.
Okay. Thank you for giving me clarity there. Now, back to Irwin's
Let me
the
try again.
recommendation for an addendum to the RFP.
Terry, I'm going to give you your 4th shot here. I want to add this as an addendum to the RFP. How do we feel about it?
I think the questions that are posed in this are on target. I think it gives a good foundation for somebody coming in that knows nothing about Reston or even the lake house. So I don't have objection to this being an addendum.
The question part of it, I don't have a problem with it, but the background pieces, I do think they're heavily, they have a lot of assumptions, they have a lot of, it's very, it's got a very distinct slant, so it's not just information, it's quite, I think, quite colored, and so I think that, like I said, I don't have a problem with the particular questions. For example, why did RA use $80 a square foot as the basis of the, where did that come from? What, the questions I'm fine with, but I'm not sure that the rest of it is going to be useful if you want just a sort of a fact-based response, which I think is what we should be seeking. Good, bad, or indifferent, we should just be seeking the information.
I agree.
So question's good, rest of it I think we should edit out.
Mr. Maynard is here tonight. He may be the best one to do the abbreviated facts-only 1 paragraph leading into the questions that we're kind of referring to, and then of course we can
Eve, I assure you that whoever gets a contact.
I'm sure they will, but there's a difference, I think, between saying that this is, an RFP. Can we have our discussion?
Yes, correct.
Please?
I didn't mean to introduce that.
I think that the RFP should be data-driven. It should just be, now, I'm sure that they'll get all kinds of input from the community, and I have no desire to thwart that in any way, shape, or form. I think we should give their contact information out. They should start dating Terry if they want, whatever. I mean, I don't really care. So I just think that, what comes in this package, though, needs to be pretty clean and pretty tight and just data-driven.
Okay, let me try again. We all like the questions, but somebody reading it is going to have some introduction, even if it's 1 or 2 sentences, as to why we're asking that question. So we can take out a lot of the editorial commentary and just, here's why we need to
Why
And
not
one or
let
two
them have the full edit? Let them have all the editorial comment, let them get it directly from 2020, and let us, if, we can use this as a part of the question set that we want them to respond to.
I agree completely with the sentiment that whatever we provide to the consultant has to be fact-based and data-driven. And so, for myself, I briefly reviewed the material from Terry, and thank you for pulling it together, but I'm not in any position to decide whether it's factual or not. I think
Right, that's the problem I have with it.
and that's the challenge. Kate, you wanted to share something?
Frankly, when I read through it, my initial reaction was, I have absolutely no problem having it go as is. If you want to attach it, I think it from my perspective, it gives the whoever is selected a flavor of the concern of the community. There is no question in there that cannot be answered. And that's that. So to me, I think that the background that is there, I'm not going to question the validity of it, but I think the sentiment is important, and I wouldn't mess with it. That's my opinion. That's just my opinion.
Then I think what we should need is a section in the RFP that says, this concerns of the community, and then it can be included that way. But I don't think it can't be, I don't think the
should not be
lead-ins,
integral.
there's too much editorial comment in here to be, sort of like, these are the questions you need to answer.
And I would also include even though they have been answered, the questions that we received from the other members, because I think it is important.
We could include
whoever's
all of the
selected.
data sets that
Correct.
we've been asked for.
Yes.
These
In
are the
fact,
kinds of things,
That way
I think that's a
whoever it
great
is
idea.
gets a full flavor of the types of questions that have been asked and the answers that have been provided.
I think that's a great
I
idea.
would just call the addendum community commentary.
Requests and commentary on this project, yeah, I think that's great.
So it's an
Great.
addendum to the RFP to give the flavor, which I think is a good thing. And I think the questions are spot on. And to your point, they can be answered. So
I agree. I thank you, Kate, for saying that and being open to this. Community comments, these are things that are
Yeah.
integral to your response to the RFP so that they can in some way incorporate.
They get a
Somebody
full-
may
they get a
wanna
full-
answer every
Flavor,
question.
absolutely. I think that's,
Don't hide it,
I
don't
think that's
mask it,
absolutely
give it all.
well, I like it because an auditing firm isn't naturally going to be able to understand this level of investigation, if that's the term.
I think all the emails, from various community members, I think that should be included in there. I think, yeah.
Well, except that we don't want to hold up this RFP getting out, so.
But we have all that's readily
it
available.
assembled.
It's all
Okay.
assembled.
I can put it
Yeah.
together. Now,
Okay.
there will have to be, if they want the responses, there's at least one that you guys got last week or the week before that requires a Dropbox review. I mean, it's not easy to look at on its own. So I think that's important that you understand that. So you can either just put the questions and then they can say, and how did you answer? Or they can at least just see the questions on that. So that's, I think, a decision point because at least one of the responses was not something that could easily be emailed.
You could let the respondents decide what they want to see in response.
That's a good idea.
They may say, yes, we'd like to see, the stuff that's easily available, we should make available. And if it's not, then
Well, but I
let
think
them
that's a good
decide.
idea. Let's see if the respondents are curious as to what the
Right,
answers were.
exactly.
So,
Right, yeah.
Hopefully they are,
Hopefully, yeah.
Can I try to recap this?
please.
We've gone 360. Go right back to the original. Attach
Community
this
Concerns.
community questions,
This-
concerns.
page.
This
No,
document.
attach this page to this as the
Yes.
formal RFP. We have a lot of other questions and concerns, but all of that can be We also have the following questions, concerns, etc. from the community, which are available to anybody who wants to make an offer on this. Otherwise, you're going to be flooding this thing with every question from everybody. This is concise. This is comprehensive. This is something that a business person who doesn't want to spend a lot of money putting a proposal together and wants to help us and get to it can get their teeth into right away and deal with it.
I think that the other members of the community who took the time to ask questions, I don't think that it's...
They will.
But why would
It's
you...
a separate available
Why would
package.
you say, but, no, I think you have you have the RFP, the basic RFP, and then you have another section, and it should include, it's not been that many emails, it's been, what, 10, 20 requests, something like that?
This is extremely focused and consolidated to get to the point and to get to the answers, which is what a proposer is going to want to have, is what we're going to want to have. Other emails and a shot here and a shot there and all of that. I'm not saying that's not important, but it could be more of a distraction. But you can have that, and this happens all the time in proposals. We have all sorts of other background information on the subject at hand available. If you want to come review it, if you want us to send it to you, we'll send it to you. But you don't make all of that part of the RFP, or you'll make it so long that nobody will bid on it. Just gonna look at it and say, no, I don't want to bother, there's too much here.
You're worried
This
that
is concise.
it would sink a consultant if they saw
I don't
10
think it's going to
emails.
sink a consultant, for God's
And
sakes.
they
It's
wouldn't
not that
know, is that as
profound.
important as this or whatever. This is a very concise, consolidated piece as we have it right now. And we can have all kinds of exhibits and other things that people can take a look at if they want to help them out.
I do not agree that should be added as a, this is what you must respond to. What I would say is, it is representative of concerns, and that's good, and that's
I
totally...
never said they have to respond to it. They can respond
Right,
to
but
it as they want.
if it's attached to, if it's like, okay, here's the RFP, part 1, part 2, then they are responding to it. And they,
These are things that we consider important. These are questions and issues that we would like to see addressed any way you want to. You don't have to answer each individual question point by point, but this is the guts of what we're trying to get at. This is
It's the
just
guts
the
of
basic
what-
framework.
of what
And I'm saying that I think this is the guts of what we're trying to get at. If I'm wrong on that, shoot me down on that. But if I'm right on that, attach it.
I think it's the guts of community concern, which is super important, super important. And so,
That's it, right
but,
there.
okay, yes, I agree. I'm just thinking that it really does need to be under separate cover on the, because it is not fact-based, it's too much editorial stuff. Like I said, the questions are fine, but all the editorial stuff is the concern, and we want the consultants to understand that.
If they want to
But-
understand the background and put a good proposal that we're going to be happy with, they should have this. Otherwise, we're not going to get the
We're
kind of
agreeing.
proposals.
Or-
Yeah,
We are agreeing.
I think we've agreed that we should attach it. I also heard that we should attach other questions from the community, and I think there's agreement on
sure
that. I'm thinking that we could probably attach, this is the first item with the others behind it.
And those were from Mr. Dean,
Mr. Abbott.
and prior questions asked by Mr. Maynard that we officially
Right.
received prior to
Absolutely.
this.
Under a separate
response.
title, like these were additional comments that were sent in by members.
These are questions sent, they were questions sent
Community
in by
concerns.
members.
Community concerns, yeah.
Individual community concerns.
But they were specific questions like the ones listed in Mr. Maynard.
They should absolutely receive it.
And state that.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So you're having 3 parts. Our part, Terry's part, individual comments.
I'd be fine with that. I think this is, I haven't seen all of the questions that you've gotten over the weeks and months about this, but when I read this, and I have to say, I got it from you earlier today, and when I read the questions, I thought, man, he really hit it. This is really what we're after. As representative of a community group within this community, I think it can and should stand on its own. And then questions by individuals could be the next attachment. Because this is presented by Reston 2020, right? So this isn't an individual. This is
So you could call it a community-based concern or something like that.
Others
I mean,
would be
community
representative
organization or
individuals.
something like that.
And
But
additional questions. Does that work?
Did I just hear a motion?
About a without objection. That
Yes.
makes life a little bit
without
easier.
objections.
Without objection?
So without
What did you say,
objection, you're
Kate?
going to add
2020 is going to be added as a community organization concern section, and then there will be individual
Community
Addendum 2.
member
yeah.
comment,
So
question.
2 addendums or 2 appendices or whatever.
So if other community organizations decide to come forward with,
We can add theirs as
We would
well.
we can add theirs
Yeah.
as well.
I don't think that will
By
happen because
when?
this goes out when? This goes out.
Because in theory,
Well,
it goes out
they'd have to
this-
get on
the end
it.
of this
if
week,
they're-
so-
Yeah,
What is your deadline?
Whatever the deadline is.
It's Friday.
yeah. Friday.
no later than Friday.
No later than Friday. Noon on Friday? What
Are you gonna go
works?
to the beach?
Beach is important.
So,
Does that work, Kate?
yeah, but- and bear with me, let me just
Okay,
capture
yep.
this. So by noon on the 12th, other boards.
Guess you won't get any.
And so we're going to, at 2020s, as addendum A, entitled Community Organization Concerns.
Yep.
And then as addendum B,
Individual member,
individual member concerns.
yep. And, I think that we should put a date, time, and let's do something that works for you, noon on Friday or 10 a.m. on Friday.
Yeah, I mean, Kate, you're us doing the assembly, so
Yeah.
I have another point or two on the RFP.
Yeah, let's get this item and then we'll.
Okay, so I have, without objection, I've got that. Good?
Good?
To add those pieces to this.
Great. Let's see if Ray has anything further.
On that particular issue, I'm good.
Okay, no, now it's time to share with you. Okay, Sherry, go for it.
2 things. One, I don't want to lose the added sentence that Dennis brought up, because that talks specifically about community concerns, which we just added as addendums. So I think we need to consider adding that sentence to the project overview.
Any objection to that?
No objection from me.
Eve?
no.
Kate?
Already captured it.
Good?
Yes, I'm good.
All right.
So we'll add
Taking
that.
care of that one. We're on a roll.
We're on a roll.
Is that without objection?
Without objection.
Without
Right.
objection.
Then stay with me for a second while I capture.
Okay, we'll just pause.
All
Look at us being quiet.
We're going to get used to this.
Okay?
All right. Sherry?
My next question would be, I think I put it in here when we sent it out, was, and I know, Kate, we had some feedback from the fiscal committee, Robert, some of your folks, around, we need to, so once this goes out on Friday, when there's questions to be asked about it, where do the questions go and how do they get answered? Is one question, is the question. And where are these proposals being sent back to? Meaning who?
And who's logging them in?
Locking them in.
What does that mean?
When a proposal comes in, that's date stamped.
Oh, log.
Time
Logging
stamped.
them in.
And I think a confirmation needs to go back to the
Yep.
entity that we received it from.
I said lucky.
I think that there's probably a mechanism within RA to handle that, no?
Yeah, you can handle that. It's not a problem.
By the way, do we have that in the RFP, where they should submit
Well,
this?
That's a question that needs to be
It's
answered.
a question. So, first question is, when this goes out on Friday, Saturday morning, questions start coming in. Where are they coming to, and how are they being addressed? I had put, I think I put Robert. I think I put Robert and myself on that because you have an RA person, you have two people that are fielding the questions. I'm the only board member that hasn't been a part of any of this from the get-go. And Robert, as the CFO, is, you know, I volunteered him to also receive, not that he has to answer, but that you have two people receiving the same thing, just as a backup, if you will, or accountability, I guess. So that was my thought. And then questions, I had proposed, because this is how I've seen it done before, I have not seen it done as, I don't know who did that edit. Sean, maybe?
Yeah, Sean might have did.
That you pull all the questions and then you answer them in more of a public forum where all the different people can come in and hear the questions and the answers at the same time. I like that, except that's a time thing, is where does that fit in the overall schedule? If we collected all the questions, then brought everybody in to answer, because everybody that is proposing would want to be there for the answers. It's just, for me, it sounds complicated, but maybe it's not.
You can respond in writing, and as we do to
send it out to all firms.
to all
Right, and that was
firms.
what I
And
had
think that
suggested initially, was
that's
that
the,
we respond in writing
the
to all
more
firms.
typical way to do it.
That we
But
know of at the time.
I think that
Robert has his hand up.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
What's common with proposals, and that is to actually have a question and answer session a week
Right.
or two after you
Submit,
release the
right.
RFP. So what's common is to actually have a conference call where you provide a date and time to people that are interested in responding. Everybody asks questions on that call,
Okay.
and the specific answers get distributed amongst everybody on that call. So if I'm proposing, colleague next to me from the proposing, everybody gets to hear everybody else's questions and answers as well. So that's pretty common in.
And they're answered on the
Bidders
spot?
conference-
Answered
bidders
on the spot?
conference, yeah.
Yeah.
But
It's on the spot, they can accumulate, or they can send them through so you have advanced knowledge of questions to potentially answer.
I think that advanced knowledge of the questions is what is, because I think, sure, you might also have difficulty answering some of the questions.
Well, I'm not
since you
saying I
weren't. No, I'm just
Yeah.
saying, I mean, so like if you do a bidders conference, you want them to have, they need to be successful in getting their questions answered. So, I mean, I think that however that gets done,
That could happen on August the 16th. I mean, if you're going to look at the timeline anyway,
right?
that could be, you've got your entire group, you've got this group plus your three, you've got the teleconference for anybody who's got questions, and that could be.
But aren't the bids already in by
I think
then?
we're talking about doing
But I know we're
something,
talking about, I mean,
we're talking about something much sooner, a week after.
it goes out, that's right, that's right.
And that would address, anybody that's interested would have an opportunity then, and we should discuss whether or not there are opportunities for follow-on, but I would like to cut it off. A week after,
Right.
you have a bidders conference call. Anybody that's interested could ask questions. If they want to share questions in advance, they would be addressed at the bidders conference.
So if it was a week later, per Robert's suggestion, if it's being issued this Friday, then that conference would be, it could be the 22nd, or you could wait to July the 25th. And anyone, or you could wait until the 29th, because in theory, the board will have approved the three people, so that those three folks could participate and listen to the types of questions that are being asked and help respond. I mean, that's
Yeah.
just
That's probably a better idea.
as an option.
I know you know
No,
my
let's,
comment, but I think this is
Erwin, let's,
Do it orally.
I'm not going to, Erwin, it's out of order. Let's handle it the way we've agreed to handle it. Sherry, does that work, putting it to the 29th?
The conference?
Bidders Conference, so that would be 2 weeks after rather than 1 week. Too long?
I like the idea that Kate said that the panel would have already, the committee would have been selected, so they could be a part of the beginning of the whole thing, which would be the 29th.
My concern is that the time is pretty foreshortened already, and anybody that's serious about bidding on this is going to probably jump on it right away.
Right.
And so would probably want to raise questions immediately. So I would propose that you do it a week after it's been released.
Mike, it's summertime. A lot of people are going to be on vacations here. A lot of people we're going to want to hear from are going to be on vacations here. So I don't like the 1 week.
Well, but that's pretty standard for bidders conference. I mean, when RFP goes out, I mean, they can email them. I mean, we can have more than one way to answer questions, but all the questions, I think, need to go back out to all the bidders. I
I
mean,
don't see why we're being hurt by making it 2 weeks instead of 1 week.
What you're doing is you're shortening the time for anybody that's going to bid on it to pull
Right,
together
they
the
don't have enough
proposal.
time then.
And my sense is that anybody that's serious about this is going to want to address questions early on to determine.
I just have a question about the process of a bidders conference. I've never been on one of those. So somebody asks a question, who's answering the question, and who's to say that person is the spokesperson?
It's typically, you have the proposers, and you have available to them those who should know the answers. So, it would be, if you're bidding on implementing a human resources system or a benefit system, then the bidders are, benefits software proposals, and the people in the conference are your benefits team, and they're responding. So in this case, I think it's probably going to be about what data is available, what materials are available because it's an audit type function, they're going to want to know what they have available to them in order to come up with responses.
So what would be the harm if we're asking them to send in the questions ahead of time, that we respond to all those people in writing and we don't have to have a conference?
There's no harm in that. It's just that you have to get all your questions together and get them assembled and get them in to us.
And they would be distributed to everyone.
And we will, so you say, okay, you have from August 1st to August 7th to get your questions in. It's just, it's much easier to do as a conference. I mean, we used to do them in meetings, but either way.
So what I would envision is if we were to do a bidders conference call, it would probably be the four of us, plus Robert Wood, and it would be addressing the questions.
I'm not even sure that we are going to be the ones who will know. I mean, that would be my concern, is that I mean, if they are going to say to us, okay, well, do you have, I mean, we certainly would know about, okay, do you have appraisals? Yes, we have appraisals. Do you have, I mean, I guess it depends on the question, but I could see.
We could encourage them, or we could say, look, forward your comments in advance, and then we would assemble the team best to address those questions. But I think ultimately it would fall on us as the governance committee to address.
And I'm thinking, now that I'm listening to the conversation, I'm beginning to lean toward written comments are better, because then you can decide
who's the responder,
who to
right.
help respond to.
Right.
It's either all going to be you all, or you're going to require myself or Robert to help answer the questions, depending on the nature of the question. There's some things that Robert might not have any idea outside of finance how to answer, because a lot of the things that are being discussed here have to do with things other than finance as well.
So if you just took the question of, like, do you have supporting information about how your, I don't know, how your roof, exactly, how your roof bid was done or something like that. You know, do you have, how many proposals did you get for X, Y, and Z? Off the top of my head, I certainly wouldn't know that, but I would assume that we certainly have all of that information, and so.
But shouldn't these questions be around how to answer the RFP, and that is pretty much written in the RFP? So if they had questions, it'd be, well, what would they're not going to ask questions about the data because that's part of the investigation. That's part of actually doing the work of the RFPs of the project.
Right.
It should be much more high level.
I would think, but I mean, I have not participated.
Right?
In
I mean, I don't know.
So
You never know.
So that argues.
Some of them be, we're not going to answer that question. That's part of the actual review part.
So that's why I'm beginning to think that written questions would be better for you to consider. Maybe.
The kinds of things I would think that you would want if you're going to conduct an audit, if you're responsible for successfully conducting an audit and investigation, you want to know that you have backup materials, access to people who know stuff, and those kinds of things.
But we say that they already have that in the RFP. You have access to any and all information that. I mean, we say that. That's why
we say that, but who knows? I mean, maybe before you're going to invest, 40 hours of proposal writing time, you want to know what form it's in. Okay, is it because it's all about
So for sake of time, do you want to do question and answer? If so, when and in what format?
So what I'm hearing is that questions in advance, written, and let me put it out there, by a week out, so July 22nd. Does that make sense? And those questions will be shared with everyone. Anybody that bids would receive the questions. Everyone that bid would receive the responses. Is there anything further?
Yeah, why is this an either or?
Pardon me?
Why is this an either or? I like the written question idea, but I also like the idea of letting people discuss it. I like a bidders conference. There's a lot of value to it.
Could do a call on July 22nd.
And the call is very focused on information that's
1-hour call.
already been submitted to us. Because there's a lot of times that you still have a little bit of uncertainty. You're not sure that the answer that you were given in writing is exactly the answer, addressing exactly the point that you want, and you want a little more elaboration. And I think it's good to have a conversation.
Then maybe do that on the 29th. Written questions in by 22nd, and I'm just trying to move this along in a call and a meeting on the 29th.
I mean, because what you should have, hopefully, is if they've submitted written questions, then you have nobody on your bidders call conference. It could be that people say, okay, we've got it.
Could be.
I mean, because I think it's really going to be all driven by availability of.
I'm good with that. I think that being able to get the key questions out by the 22nd, and then if there's anything further on the 29th, those that are committed and serious.
I think our RFP is going to be so solid, there's not going to be any questions.
You've done such a great job assembling it.
That's what I'm, for what it's worth.
So, Sherry, anything else?
I'm sure I could.
Because there were a couple of things that she brought up.
Let's hear what you got.
One was bidders' questions in writing by the 22nd. That will need to be added to the RFP. Bidders' call on the 29th.
Yes.
Who are these going to? Who are the questions coming to? Because that's a question. Where do questions go? And who do questions go to? I could offer you could set up an email box that goes to all
that's what should happen.
People.
Yeah.
and Robert and I can be included in on that, because more than likely he and I are going to be ones assembling the materials as we did for this meeting this evening.
I think it's really important that everything we do also be auditable, and so an email to a general thing is, yeah. Because
Is that fair?
if it comes to a single person, then I think that person is
Yeah, no, I think that's
exposed.
good with it.
Yeah.
So we will have all 7 determined by,
We'll have them by the 28th, but we'll make sure that they get all of the information. So we'll set up the initial box right away. We're going to have to do that by Friday. And that'll go to at a minimum this group plus Robert and myself.
Yep.
And then we'll add in the other 3 and make sure they get
Have access.
have access to that.
Yep.
And we'll probably set up a Dropbox, right?
Yep.
So that all the everybody's got
Everything's
access
available
to
to
that.
everybody.
Is that
Yeah.
good?
Yep.
everybody good?
So without objection,
Good.
where do they go to, what do you, very short name, what do you want to call, Tetra Independent Review?
That
at
sounds
Reston.org?
great.
Yeah.
Okay.
Great. So Sherry, that covers your points on the RFP? You don't have to dig out more, you know. We're good.
I'm good for the moment.
Good, for the moment.
I've got more.
You do? Let's do Eve first, and then we'll come back to you, Ray.
I don't have any more in the RFP. I do have some questions on the
bidders list?
The bidders list, yeah.
Okay, let's finish the RFP,
Sure.
and then we'll come back to the bidders.
Okay, extremely important. All of these offers come in. There'll be the guts of the work plus financial information. How are we going to safeguard these? Because the information coming in at that point, an actual proposal of what they're going to do, how they're going to do it, how much it's going to cost you comes in. Only 7 people should have access to that. How are we going to safeguard that Kate doesn't see it, Mr. Wood doesn't see it, community members that aren't in this panel don't see it?
These are the...
Why does it have to be secret?
These are proposals, individual proposals from companies, including financial data, which they may not want to have shared about their employees and how much they pay them and everything else. We don't know. And there's a very strong likelihood we're going to take just a handful of the people and interview them. So person A should not know what person B's proposal is and who they're going to do and how they're going to do it if they're going to have an interview and they're competing with person B, obviously.
Oh, you mean, okay, so you mean,
We're familiar with this, too.
right, yeah, I mean, this is how,
Yeah, we do
I mean,
this regularly.
yeah, I
Okay, I
mean,
just want to make sure, I want to know the process.
But-
I want to know how
But if
we
but if
can
you
make
do you not
sure.
want Robert and I to have access to prep the
Proposals?
information for you, or? 'cause
That
we're not
doesn't make
gonna-
sense.
I want it to be 7 people. I'm not talking about the cover and who came in and logging in, who's there. Like, name the firm, they submitted a proposal, I'm fine with that. But what's inside of that should only be knowledge known by the 7 people.
I think that's unusual.
I think it's not unusual, I think it's quite standard.
It is when you're doing, you're right in the sense of, you don't want the other firms to know what each other have done.
Of course.
Of course.
Yeah.
And when you consider them, when the 7 of you consider them, it should be in executive session, because it is
Because it's
a
contracts,
competitive
right,
bidding
sure.
process.
Okay.
If they're submitted, now here's the question. Who is going to be on the Tetra Independent Review at Reston.org list? Is it just the 7 and you're excluding staff? That's your question mark,
Because staff is
they're
the
going to
question
submit them
answers.
electronically.
Yeah.
I mean, they primarily, groups have been doing an electronic submission. And I am not, nor is Robert, and I can make a promise, going to do anything in any way, shape, or form to mar this process. We understand the importance of it, and I just want to make sure everyone in this room understands that, okay? We get the importance of it, and we're not going to mess with it in any way, shape, or form.
I have-
Unless, just Just putting that out there. So tell me who you want to receive and be a part of this process so that he and I are in clear understanding of what we're doing moving forward. And I hope I've proven through the entire process that I've been nothing but cooperative in this.
Well, let me just put it out there. I am completely comfortable with the 7 plus you and Robert. I think that it's essential that we have staff support to assemble it.
Yeah.
And, I depend on your integrity and your honesty to do what's right, and I expect it. And so that would be my very strong recommendation.
Plus, we're volunteers with actual, other jobs, and so.
Absolutely.
Did you have a question, Robert?
One quick comment. I think it's a really good to actually have the criteria on how you're going to decide what to refer before we receive the
Absolutely.
Yes.
That's crucial. And then another comment is maybe we should add, we've got a link to a lot of information on our website relating to the Lake House project.
Yes.
If we can add that under
Yes.
the project review.
That's in
Thank
there.
you.
It's already in there. Yeah, it's a direct link.
But he makes a
Right.
good point. You can't look at the contract so you've also you've created the criteria.
Right. That's, yes.
So if somebody decides
because you don't want
on
to.
July 16th to submit their proposal to this group, we actually haven't set the criteria yet.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean?
Yep, I hear you.
Well, so I think what you have to do is not, you can't evaluate, you can't read them, you can't look at anything, or you don't let the email, you don't release it, you don't release the emails or something, so that they're not,
And it's understood that any of the material we receive through that email box is confidential and privy data.
Well, I just want to make sure one thing. That this is totally leak-proof. Okay?
Then they
I don't
come in
want-
and they sit, and they don't go anywhere until
Anybody
the group's
else to have
assembled.
any possibility of having access to whatever emails these things are being sent to.
Okay.
I don't want any possibility that any of the 7, or if we add 2 more, will possibly discuss anything about the proposals or even who's in on the proposal. That this is just completely leak-proof. I don't care how much pressure is put on by any of these people, any of the other board members, anybody from staff, I don't care.
It won't come from me. Okay.
I just want knowledge that we're going to have 9, if we're going to have 2 people, I'm assuming we're going that direction, that we're going to have 9 people that we can count on that are going to be locked lips on everything, no possibility of somebody getting into a computer system and getting any of this information. You assure me of that, I'm fine with it.
I want to understand your concern. And maybe I'm just being naive. I'm not getting. If we. Are you talking about after a selection is made? Or are you talking
when
about
the bids are submitted?
you're talking about the, okay, all right. So your concern is about the integrity of the process to the point of selection.
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
From the
I'm just
point of
trying to
August 12th, they're all
understand it.
in. It's in a lockbox.
Right.
The only people who see it are us 7, Kate, and Bob. Period. That's it. The only people with access to any.
And they're not distributed beyond that
Correct.
group.
So you're,
Correct.
okay, I'm just trying to understand your concern is
And that
about
everybody knows that.
about
so they can't
pressure,
say, "Oh, I made an
external
honest mistake."
pressure coming into
Yeah.
the selection
I think
process.
that's got to be very clear.
Is that what your concern is?
Yeah, and the
Okay,
3 people
all right,
we
I just-
hire, it has to be extremely clear to them.
So we're not hiring anybody,
Well, I'm not, you
Appointed.
know what I'm saying here.
Are we getting paid to do
Not yet.
Selecting the 3 people.
Yeah.
Okay? It could be a member of the community, just blow it over and having a glass of wine on Saturday night, and they innocently mention one thing, it just blows the integrity of the whole process. We can't have that.
I don't know that you're going to be able to control it, but I
We
see
can
Robert
control it
has
as well as we can by stating it and stating it and stating it again. We can even have people sign for it.
I have, go ahead.
I've got a quick suggestion. What you can do, you can add into the proposal that you would like the proposal to have a certain window of time to be received on a specific day. and then the cuts out any kind of
Good
thing
suggestion.
before or after. You say, well, we want proposal, if you propose, we want it to be 2 p.m. and 5 p.m. on this date, that's it. No before, no after. And then
That's pretty common.
That's a very, very good recommendation. Thanks, Robert. Sherry?
I'm glad you hung out tonight, Mr. Robert.
Per my request.
Per Kate's request. I'm just having this sort of anxious feeling that I go back to our board meeting where we said, and I remember you saying this because you were adamant, that we have to be as far away from this process as possible.
That's, I mean,
And it
there's
feels
a
like
lot of
we're-
ambiguity.
We're
or-
locking
yes.
ourselves in, so I can
Right.
already see the headlines. Board Governance Committee is in
Yeah.
charge of selecting the firm that's going to investigate the very board that they're a part of. I just,
They're
I
going to
just
say that no
see-
matter what, so.
But what can we do to prevent that? So part of my thinking as I'm thinking, so bear with me. Thank you, Julie, for bringing me food. I just noticed it was here. Is wouldn't it be interesting if the 3 people that we choose, the community members, made an assessment on their own of the contracts that come in, and then just to hear what the community members thought, and then we come back as a group and discuss it. I mean, I just think we are putting so many controls around the board. I mean, the board is now selecting the group. I'm just having this anxiety that we started saying this whole process that this has to be independent, completely independent, and now we're actually
Nobody will bid for anything for Reston Association again.
I'm just saying.
We can't, we can't.
I just want to leave it there.
We
I
can't.
abdicate our responsibilities.
Yeah,
I get
it's
it.
not-
It was just a feeling. I just want to put it out there that
I do,
Okay,
I
I'm
mean,
feeling conflicted.
well, I do, I think that it's going to be, I don't know how you put non-board members, how you, I don't know, I mean, we're not sworn in, so, but, you know, I mean, the rules of
Well, it's
executive
pretty-
session and stuff like that, I mean,
I can. Feel like that's one.
well, I mean,
I mean,
they're
no,
not
it was-
covered
it
by,
was just a-
but they're not covered by,
I know. I'm not
by
asking you to
insurance.
make
They're
this
not,
selection. I'm
you
just,
know.
wouldn't it be interesting to hear, or whatever. It's just a thought. We're not going to do it that way, so we can't, I guess.
It's a concern. There's lots of concerns.
A little concerned. Noted.
Well, it's hard to be
Anything further?
transparent if everything has to be secret, so that's what I don't like.
It's a balance.
You do need to, so there are a couple of.
I get it. I
couple
totally
of
get
things
it.
that were-
Okay.
A couple of things that were put on the table. One was, who is going to receive and see? Are you doing all 7? Are
9.
you including Robert and I?
Yes.
Is that without objection? Let's get clarity 4 minutes as to
It's
how you
the
want to move
9
forward.
without objection. That's what I heard from the group.
Okay.
Your other question?
Of course, I have to write that down. The other would be, do you like the proposal that's been put on the table, that all proposals must be received only between 2 p.m. and 5 p.m. on August the 12th?
No.
Okay?
I think the time should be absolutely firm.
Between 2 and, so
No
no,
later than X time on
on
it.
that date.
On
No
that day.
earlier than this day and by this time.
You've gotta
So you're
have a
not
window.
trying to
No
get that-
later than. It can be as early as they want to submit it.
Well, but
Well,
then you've
I'm
got
trying to address your concern about
security
secrecy.
concern.
If they
And
send
do
it
it
by
in,
email and you're just holding it, nobody's got access to the email, what difference does it make?
But it's going to the group email, so then you're comfortable
If
with
you
the
want-
9 people are getting it. I want to make sure I adequately address what you just
Okay, you
discussed.
can put it right, but we have to be absolutely firm that no later than.
Of course.
X
Okay.
time.
Oh,
I would just say it should
absolutely.
be after the 9th when we talk about the
Right.
criteria. So they'll be accepted between August 9th and August 12th. Anytime
Not before,
between.
right.
Right, Robert, does that get?
Yeah, my comment was really to kind of raise concern of any kind of
Yeah.
lead point out there.
Between
And
August 9,
After we have that meeting, Kate,
but how about accepted between
or August 10th through 12th?
August, how about August 10? Okay, that's good. August 10 will be accepted only between August 10 and 12.
so we've got a big range there. Does that address your concern?
10 through 12? Yeah.
I'm okay with it.
What I heard is the proposal was a date certain, a deadline, and a range of 2 or 3
I
hours.
think most people are going to submit it on the last day. Even if they have it ready, they're going to wait to hit the send button until the last day anyway.
But I think making it specific, August the
definitely.
12th from 3 to 5
Right.
is
No later than 5.
no later than 5. After 5, it's not,
Will not be accepted, will not even be looked at.
absolutely. Does that work, Keith?
Yeah, it's fine with me.
August 12th, 3 to 5, no later than 5 p.m.
How about no later than 5 PM?
Yeah, that's
Just
what I
like
was.
What he
Yeah.
just said.
Because I heard 3 to 5.
Well,
so I
3 to
was-
5, it can go in,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just no later than 5.
No later than 5 p.m.
all right? Are we good to go on to the next item?
Yes.
The bidders list? Okay, this is item G.
And bear with me just a moment, so I... Okay.
So my point of concern with this is that I asked Kate to add this third column, which was the knowledge of how did this prospective bidder show up on the list? And I think it's the who and the how. So, Sherry, you recommended Bond, BB Accountants and Advisors. How do you know them?
There are current accounts where I work.
So
They can
okay.
come off.
No, I don't care if they're on. I just think that the community should know who recommended and how that firm was found, and if there's what the history is. I mean, if it's a board member is making a recommendation, the community needs to feel.
If that creates a conflict, we take them off.
It doesn't create
mean,
conflict, it's information. It's only information. It's all that has to, it's disclosure to the community about how we know these firms and
Do you
groups.
want to go through the list and do that?
I think that's probably a good idea.
So Bond is the firm that you work with at Compass Rose. Okay. All right, I'll add that.
But we're not limiting the bidders list, right?
No,
No,
now that you-
no, but these
So
are
if
good.
anybody wants to come in,
I
they
was
come
just trying to
in.
get the ball rolling.
Well, we need a list to send out to this Friday. Let's
Right.
put it that way.
We've got to
So-
start with some, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So, works with firm at Compass Rose. So I
Gotcha.
can add that.
Are we going to make an announcement in RA News or any other else this is going out? So that somebody can
Yes, when
read
it's
it?
finalized, yes, I will make sure that, it goes out as part of RA News on Friday. Sound good?
Yes.
Can we comment to local media that it's going out to get them to post it?
I will talk to my communications team about doing a press release.
They're a
that
good
goes out.
team to do.
How about that?
How about it? I
Okay.
like it.
All right, so bear with me and let me capture
The data.
what I need to do. So,
Just a couple
so on
of polls here.
7/12,
yeah.
it goes out in RA News and through press release.
What date is that?
That would be Friday the 12th.
15.
I apologize, thank you. Today's the 12th. Okay.
Friday the 15th.
You had another 12th in there, right?
I did, I remember that too, thanks. Yeah, I appreciate that.
And August 12th.
Right, yeah, we had an August 12th that I was thinking about. That's what got me screwed up, so thank you. Okay, so got that, and I've added Sherry's disclosure on where she, yep, and
So we have a whole here, Test Consulting is provided by Danielle. Is this the one that,
let's see, she indicated that her husband's firm,
worked with
And her husband's firm is Clark Construction.
Right. Had used them or knew of them or something like that.
Had used firm in the past.
Okay.
Good?
Yep.
Okay.
I think it's worth mentioning Clark Construction because they're a very large, reputable.
Yeah, I did.
Okay, so then, okay, CST Group, Sherry, where'd you find them?
They bid on a contract. We didn't take their bid, but they bid on a contract with us.
Bid on a contract
For Compass?
for this roads in the past, but were not selected. And I added my disclosure on
Yep,
my
that's fine.
familiarity with some of their firm members.
Right, that's just, that you just, okay. Okay, Duff and Phelps, Robert, you provided them?
And I did, you knew a former individual who worked there, but they're not there now.
Yeah, so basically Ken asked me to add a few firms. I stopped when I got to 7 because I was actually spent time for about 3 years in investigations at the Lloyd. So I know a lot of people.
Right.
I basically looked them up on LinkedIn. Of everybody I've suggested, I haven't spoken to all of them for about 2 to 3 years except Richard Podesek based on advising.
Okay, so these are just other people you know in the industry?
Yeah, and I've worked with them at the Lloyd.
Okay, gotcha.
And I tried to indicate that where,
So Deloitte contact, okay.
well, but they worked at former Deloitte, so new former member from the firm who worked at Deloitte.
Okay.
But they're not at that firm
Gotcha,
anymore.
that's fine.
Rafa, we know, right? It's an RA organization.
Well, that was, okay, but that was Sherry's recommendation, but Rafa is our current
They are
manager,
correct.
so
They are current money manager.
I think
And
that
so-
probably should not be included on the list. When you, I mean, they can bid if they want, I guess, but.
Would you want to do the same thing with BDO Seidman?
Now, let's leave them alone. What's the big
Do
deal?
you want to leave Rob, I mean, it's up to you. Do you want to finish going through, and I know Ray's got somebody to add.
Okay.
And then you can decide
I mean, I don't.
how you want to handle
Why
it.
would we
It's an open
exclude
bid.
anybody?
But I do think the disclosure is important, but it's an open bid.
Right.
And how did you know Rafa, Sherry? Because I know that they currently work with us, but if you wanted to add that.
So they worked with Compass Roads.
Okay.
In the past.
They work for you all?
In the past. We go through auditors like crazy. No, I'm kidding.
Prior project, okay?
So Stone Turn Group, same thing?
Same thing.
There's a lot of Italian firms in Reston, aren't there?
Oh, yeah.
That's a lot of everything. Okay. Ray, you want to add one?
Yeah, I've given this name in twice. I was the first one to propose a name, and nobody even wants it, so.
Definitely want it, just hadn't received the actual
Here it is,
information
right
for
here.
it. Okay, bear with me if, will I add that
Is
to
that the Booz
list?
Allen one?
Well, they're not Booz Allen. They do work for Booz Allen, which is a good,
They have done work for Booz Allen.
yes. They do investigative work of this nature for Booz Allen when they have such a problem.
SAGGAR and
Sager and Rosenberg.
see, and they're on 1 Church Street.
How do you know them, Ray?
Told by people at Booz Allen.
They were referred by Booz Allen. Anybody else that we should add to the list? No? It's good?
We have 18 firms on the list.
Plus, you're gonna get it out there, promote it, whatnot, there may be others.
And who else? Yeah, so this will be the initial send out and it'll be press release, all of that.
Robert?
Just a comment on video. They will most likely decline to propose because they are our auditors and would create a conflict of interest.
Right.
Sure. Yep.
But just, we'll see what they do, right?
Yeah, it's right.
It's a test,
See what
right,
they do.
exactly.
Yeah.
And then we can decide if we want our auditors.
So without objection, send
Yes.
out to the amended list.
Without objection, send out the amended list. The list is complete for now. Can we go on to item number H, which are the actual criteria? We talked a little bit about this. We want to share it with the other three that are going to join us. We'll deal with this on our next, at our next meeting. Is there anything further we need to discuss about it at this point in time?
For discussion, without objection, for
Right.
discussion till August 9th.
Correct.
August 9, yep.
And bear with me a second.
I think it looks like a pretty good list right now. Be interested in thoughts from the other group. And I think this is the point where we're going to offer the community a chance to share 1-minute thoughts on deliberations. Are we good, Kate?
Bear with me and I'll be ready to receive
Okay.
additional member comments.
Age before, I'll let you,
Which one is he, age or beauty?
no, we're gonna do Joe Layton first and then,
How do you don't know this person here?
well, I'm just assuming.
Some
You're,
people say I'm 113 years old.
No, you're
Not
very-
quite that old.
It's
Not
based
quite.
on wisdom.
Joe, why don't you come on up?
My thing's very simple. That's why I suggest that you keep the door open because this is an open meeting. It shouldn't be closed.
Oh, by all means.
Thank
you, Joe.
Since you're not executive session.
Thank you. Anything else?
No, I think all your comments were very good. So I just came in to listen.
Thank you. Terry?
Age or beauty?
Terry Mann, 2217 Big Robert Lane. I have 20 minutes worth of comments, and I'll address 2 of the items on the list.
Okay.
First, thank you for including the community and personal comments as part of the RFP process. It helps widen the discussion that whatever group gets to go after this can have, and I really appreciate your consideration of that and going ahead and doing it. As I said, they get them anyway, so what the heck. The second one is, I'm picking up on something Sherry said here. I think, in all honesty, we ought to drop the word independent of having anything to do with this review, as it's board dominated from beginning to end. You will be a majority of whatever the panel is that's picked. They'll be the minority. You're picking the other committees picking the panel. RA is signing the contract. Financial responsibilities comes from RA. The board is approving everything. This is not independent. Just call it a review and be honest about that. Timeline for work. And you've been stretching the timeline internally on your part of it, and yet you still only have 50 days for the contractor to put this together. I know you can amend budgets because you've just done that in May and in June. So I would suggest that you give the contractor 3 to 6 months. And I'll stop. That's actually through 3 things there. Was that the bill, right, Kate?
Yes, sir.
All right.
Thank you, Terry. Anybody else? Erwin?
Erwin Flashman, 1327 Barnwell Point. I know you did not give a lot of consideration this evening to the criteria for considering RFP proposals. However, on what you have here, you cannot do it alone. You have to wait for this. Because some are far more important than others. One of the considerations that will be overriding to some extent will be financial. And so you need to take a look at these criteria, probably add more and weight them in terms of their importance to the ultimate decision. And I don't know that you can do it mathematically. You may have a lot of gut feelings involved, especially after interviews, and a sense of once you've whittled it down to the top 3 or top 2, this may serve as a guide, but it won't be the decision.
Okay, thank you. And of course, if you have any comments on the criteria, you want to share them with us until they're finalized at our next meeting, would welcome.
Okay.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Just technical,
Dennis?
point of order, or gratuitous comment, Dennis Hayes, looking at it open today. Having been through a number of bidders conferences and discussions and all of these things, I will say that the most important thing is at the end of the day, you have to have in writing the final answers to the questions. If you stage it so that you have the answers and then you have an oral discussion, something is going to change, and then you're going to have confusion over what the final answer is. So at the end of this process, however you want to stage it, you need to have a written that goes out to all the bidders that says this is what we're looking for. Otherwise, you're going to get lawsuits.
Right.
Right, good suggestion. Any other questions, comments from our president, fellow board member? Ellen? No? Julie? No? Okay. Thank you. So we are, believe it or not,
Amazing.
4 minutes ahead of schedule. It never happens. Thank you. I appreciate it.
You made up a lot of time on those last two, but you can get around the curve.
Absolutely.
Stay on target.
Details.
Okay, so our Code of Ethics project. Just as I made comments earlier about the chairmanship of this committee,
This committee, the Code of Ethics.
the Code of Ethics Committee, I chair the Governance Committee. You should not presume that I should chair all the other work of this committee, and I'm more than happy to have this committee delegate that responsibility with the approval of the board. So I just wanted to put it out there. In terms of general comments, I've received comments from a number of folks about the code. I think, Erwin, you captured some of what I heard as well. What's the urgency about getting this complete? I'd like to get it complete. I'd like to get it complete right. I want to make sure that there's ample time for discussion with the community, with those that are active on committees and otherwise, and with the board. At our last board meeting, we had talked about 2 ways of soliciting further input. One is, polls. The other is focus groups. That will incur costs to RA through the consultant to try to consolidate that. So that's all I have to say about the code at this point. Your thoughts?
I sent my feedback on the code to Quantum directly. I didn't know, I thought that was what
Excellent.
we were supposed to do.
Yes.
In fact, I'm going to do that with, unless I hear an objection. I was going to send Erwin's comments to
Absolutely.
Quantum.
Absolutely. We had asked that they all be
Yeah, okay.
sent to...
So my general sense of the code was that it was, and which is why I asked for the employee handbook, because this read to me like an employee handbook. Because there's lots of phrases and paragraphs in here that don't apply to a volunteer group of people, whether you're a board or a committee member or what have you. And so I just don't think, as it stands today, this fits the need. I don't think that the code that I think we're talking about needs to apply to the staff, because they have an employee handbook which addresses pretty much everything that's in this that would apply to them. The handbook was well done. I read through it. I've certainly seen enough handbooks in my lifetime. So if we're creating a code of ethics that is for the board and our volunteer committee members, then I think you kind of start over and you just talk about what that would look like. Because it's not this length, this long, this doesn't fit what I think you were trying to get to. So, that's just my general comment at this point.
My, I always struggle with these a little bit because I always think, if you're trying to teach people to be ethical, it's kind of a problem, right? But what we can do is focus on conduct, and we can, how we conduct ourselves, I think should be pretty, quantifiable and easy to enumerate. And then getting buy-in that this is how we're going to behave with each other and in the community. I mean, So I actually would say that I struggle with the label of code of ethics. I think it should be a code of conduct myself, but I understand that there's some, but I'm not really on this committee, so.
No, I appreciate the
That's,
comments.
yeah, that's my perspective, is that it should be, very conduct focused, and I think it should be very board focused too. Because it's, where we tend to run into issues is, okay, it's election time and somebody sends a group email out that's, just wrong, just should not have been sent out.
So could I ask what prompted us to even start this project?
Well, we don't have a code of conduct for the board. And we have had instances where and it does seem to tend to kind of come up and flare up around election time, where things were done that were alarming. Let's put it that way. I don't know I'm not sure we don't have a code of conduct, so you can't say it was wrong because we haven't said, hey, we could say it wasn't, well.
So there were lots of meetings held in 2015.
Stop babbling.
That I can direct you to.
Yeah.
We met with Bruce Leslie, actually had to call him back in to have a conversation with us, and there was a pretty strong cry from a couple of the board directors at the time who thought it was important we have actually an ethics committee.
And who's Bruce again?
Leslie's the gentleman who did our May workshop. Mm-hmm. So that was born out of this, and it's actually it's one of the responsibilities of this committee is to
because it's part of governance.
It's part of governance committee to kind of uphold the code of conduct, which you don't have one yet. Staff has one. You're absolutely right. Does the board and do the committees have one? No. So it was also part of the budget process when the board decided, yes, this is something that we wanted to do. I apologize. I'll wait till Lee's done because I'm sorry. No, so the board voted to put the money in the budget to do this last year as well. So that's kind of how this came up.
I think, frankly, too, the genesis of some of this was, when decisions get made that are not popular or not unanimous, which that would be pretty much every decision, we will occasionally get a cry from the community that was, it was shady, it was back room, it was, and so, we're trying to be responsive. And I do think, like I said, I think that a code of conduct that speaks to is important. I mean, it is important. And ethics committee would be a group that would take up then if somebody violated a code of conduct, right? So if you did something harebrained,
There's
or
recourse.
there's recourse, and there's, so, I don't, so that's basically.
So kind of what you're describing, the picture I have in my mind of what you're describing is what you would see in kind of a high school of rules of behavior, right? The 10 top rules of behavior, and if you don't do something about that right, you get sent to the guidance counselor's office.
I would say it's a heck of a lot more serious.
I would say this
I
too.
do, but
Yeah,
I think,
mean, it's like.
I guess my
put in your
struggle is
personnel file, and if you
I
get
understand.
two or three of them,
I get it why you
It
have
goes
a
against
code.
you.
Well, let me just finish. So I guess what I'm perplexed about is I read this and I saw a handbook, right? Got one of those for the staff. So then if we're focused on the board and the committees, we're talking about a code of conduct or behavior, if that's what this is. No, I know. I'm
That's
just
my
taking
perspective.
I'm just taking,
Yeah.
following up on your comments. To me, it's, I think people, and again, I'm trying to understand the history behind this, but if we're elected to the board mostly because of our professional backgrounds, right? So we're brought in.
No.
Well, I would hope that some of our professionalism would be a reason that you're on a board. Not necessarily your trade craft, but the way you present yourself, certainly in the public. I mean, you're voted in by a group of people, so somebody has enough faith in you that you can represent them on the board. So if people, and I don't know if this is coming from heated disagreements or, it seems to me that those happen, and if it got out of control, you just deal with it as individuals, 1-on-1, 2-on-1, 3-on-1, whatever that looks like. I guess I'm struggling with all of it. If we need an
Why is it
ethics committee, an
necessary?
independent ethics committee, that if somebody does something that is totally out of left field and they go to this independent, not board related, independent ethics committee, that's different, and that seems logical. We can do that. So I'm struggling with kind of the whole focus, purpose, objective of all of it. So
Okay, before we go
Anyway.
into more discussion, what I would like to get from this committee, in terms of a sense, is, the issue of timeline. Are we forcing the timeline? Are we open to additional resources to solicit input from the community through focus groups or polls or otherwise, and what recommendation might we make to the board?
Well, in all due respect, you're getting ahead of yourself. I patiently listened to dozens of comments that I couldn't disagree with more, and I want to have the ability to discuss this myself. First off, the last comment that Sherry made, I just want to say amen.
Which comment, just so that we understand?
Comments regarding the way these things should be handled, and an ethics panel if somebody is way out of control.
Okay, so that's the
And
recourse.
that
How do we?
entire discussion, amen. Code of ethics. Bruce and Quantum were very, very, very clear, and people were trying desperately to have them attach the word conduct to this. They stood fast and said, no, it's a code of ethics. We all know this for a reason.
I was
We're
not there, I'm sorry.
Excuse me.
I was absent that
I
night.
patiently sat
I'm
and
sorry,
listened to
Ray, yeah.
things you said that I have no agreement with for
That's
5
fine,
minutes.
that's fine.
It is not a code of conduct. It never will be, it never should be. It's a code of ethics, if we're going to go along with this. If you want to talk about a guiding principle, fine. If you want to talk about a code of conduct, where the way I'm talking now offends somebody, so therefore, who's going to make the call that I don't have the proper respect, that I don't have the proper collaboration, that I'm not being a steward of the community? Who are you saying is making this call? I've had charges made against me that are so absurd by people who have definitely violated things in here. and things about me that are absolute lies, quite frankly. And the old saying about projection applies in many ways here. The people who are making the most accusations are the ones that are projecting their own behavior upon someone else. We can't have that happen. We are professional volunteers, 9 people. I'm not going to talk to everybody and feel the need to be the same way as if Kate is talking to a staff member or an employee. That's an entirely different situation. We have to make sure that your manners are absolutely correct and go by the employee handbook and all. We are 9 professionals who are supposed to be here to make very difficult decisions. There's going to be heat at times. There's going to be confrontation at times. If there's not, we're not doing our job. And past boards, if I may, have been accused of, and I think rightfully so, of being way too emphasized on collaboration and agreeing and getting along with each other, to where we've created a force field bubble around this entire building and entire board. And I've been trying for a year and a half, and with success, of making it an outside-in rather than an inside-out type of an organization. And I would say, and challenge me on this all you want, that we have a much more of an outside-in perspective today than we had when I entered the board. If I've accomplished nothing else, I hope that I've helped in pushing things in that direction. And that's a positive, and I've had objections to it, and if it came down to a majority vote of our former president and others on the board, let's collaborate against Ray, and it's 6-3 that we think that you should be disciplined because you're not being respectful in the way you're talking to people. Nonsense. That's doing nothing but promoting a yes mentality and a yes man mentality and groupthink, which I've been fighting and we've been successful in many ways of combating. Sherry's introduction to the board is a major addition to that. And we should continue to go in that direction and quit being paranoid about somebody trying to influence our election, which, by the way, is a democratic process. They can support whoever they want to support, and continuing to circle the wagons every time something happens that somebody doesn't agree with or somebody doesn't like. And I never get many calls at all. I mean, heck, we have a something in writing that says the president talks to the CEO 200 hours a week. I was still waiting for my first phone call to say what was discussed over that time. I think the context of those discussions might help me as a board member. Is that a violation of a code of ethics? I'm not bringing any charges against anybody. It's certainly something that I'd like to have. And, you know, this is not an easy process, this whole thing that, well, somebody's conduct, that's easy to do. No, it's not. It's very difficult to do. We have 9 diverse personalities. I hear from a diverse number of people in the community that I don't always agree with. In fact, many of them I disagree with many of the times. That's okay. I still want to hear from them. And this whole idea of turning this into code of conduct, just strike the word conduct from your mentality and from your vocabulary. It is, as Quantum says, as Bruce was saying, a code of ethics. That's what it is. We're not here to legislate somebody's behavior, legislate somebody's tone. You know, nobody's cursing, nobody's denigrating any individuals here. If they're disagreeing with you, if their tone makes you think of somebody else on the outside and you want to attach a behavior and say you're talking like so-and-so, you know, that's nonsense. That's total nonsense. And we should continue
So what
to
I'm
speak
hearing
our
is
minds.
this is a code of ethics, not a code of
It's a
conduct.
code of ethics. And I'd like to know through all this stuff, like, who's going to define for me what loyalty is, what respect is, you know, what is,
Well,
name any of them.
let's start with respect.
Name any of them.
Treat each person as
You don't
an
want to go
individual.
there.
Well,
Because I could name
Ray, I
specific
beg-
facts, Mike, about lack of respect to me with specific people that I don't want to mention. I want to bury it, and like Sherry says, these are things that should be handled with a phone call or a discussion away from the board, and we move forward.
That's
We're
the
9
recourse.
professionals. We're not employees of RA. And the way Kate would treat her staff, or the way she would treat her employees, or the way I talk to the public is entirely different. I think the people here, there aren't many left, will tell you that. I am not nearly as firm and stern in the way I'm talking if I'm disagreeing with Erwin or Tammy, for example. But they both know, yeah, I'll disagree with them. And a lot of times we'll come to a much better consensus decision as a result. I am not going to sit here and create this bubble force field like we've been doing for years that has an inside-out look of everything, that we know more than everybody else. And we got a moat around this building with a bunch of Disney alligators in it. So don't you even try to penetrate what's happening here. That's not going to happen.
I'm confused about that because I think that my view of the code of ethics or the code of conduct is a document, a statement of what our values are, what are the standards associated with them, how do we represent ourselves to
I
the
agree.
community.
Like I said, guiding principles. I'm fine with guiding principles. But don't tell me that somebody on our board can say, I don't like the way Ray talked to me, or make some really ridiculous analogy with, because we use straw man too often here, but the true definition of a straw man, you said this, therefore you think that. No, I'm not playing that game with anybody. I'm not letting anybody play that game with me.
My use of the word conduct I don't want you to misinterpret I'm not at all suggesting that that we should be legislating behavior or even that but certainly my comments had absolutely nothing to do with any individual board member whatsoever. My comments are, in my mind, somebody's ethics is really about how they kind of comport themselves. It's about how their head is screwed on. It's about whether or not they lie and cheat. I mean, obviously we're in our business, right? We are, we make a commitment to go to bat for our clients. We do that. We maintain confidentiality of their personal data.
And I think, frankly, you've got to write that down.
Well, and we do have a written code of ethics.
How are we going to relate to one another?
So Ray and I already have a code of ethics. We're both realtors, and there's a 12-point code of ethics that it actually uses a lot of some sort of similar language. Kinds of things. I guess I tend to think of this more as a way we would sort of expect generally, not that we can't have some fierce debates all. We have to have fierce debates.
Respectful.
Absolutely, but but you certainly would hope that that somebody wouldn't, call you a name and tell you to go to hell.
But are they?
Right, and I'm just saying that, no, they're not. I agree, you're right, but that doesn't mean that it isn't part of the responsibility of governance to say there's an expectation. It's all about just expectations. It's like, look, you and I know, when you're dealing with a shady agent, right? There's just no way that you could do more than 3 transactions.
We don't have any shady board members, to my knowledge.
I don't believe that we do either, but, we're not like permanently assigned either. I think that...
I'm not disagreeing with you on that, but there's a lot of very soft words used in here that other board members have tried to seize upon.
Well, you know what it sounds like to me?
And I don't like that.
What you're doing is you're reinforcing in my mind that we need more time to communicate what this is. Because, one of the early conversations I had around this was, this has to be written in terms for us to understand and internalize. And if we can't relate to the way it's presented, then it's not particularly helpful. And I think that I very much appreciate the healthy, respectful disagreement that we have in this committee. You know, the idea is not for my ideas to prevail, but ours as a group to prevail. And in my view, in my simple view, this code of ethics or code of conduct helps provide that. I know in my term as a member of this board, there were instances where there either was or there were allegations of impropriety. And that facilitates distrust of us as an entity. And so we need to capture this. You know, what is it that we stand for on behalf of the community? And how will we relate to one another in discussions and debate? And I think that if we could capture in a few words the conversation we've had this evening about the Tetra, the conversation we're having here, that would reflect the code of conduct and code of ethics. I would just add one other piece, that if there are allegations of impropriety or otherwise, there's a mechanism for members of the community, for the board members affected, to share those and have them dealt with effectively.
Yeah.
The organization I work for absolutely has a mechanism in place to do it. Others do as well.
We have that. I mean,
We all do.
but we
I
don't
want it to be
have that
a
yet.
push to continue to be a groupthink bunch of yes people.
Absolutely
And if you're not in
not.
that circle, there's something wrong with you, there's something disrespectful about you. No, I don't want us to ever get to that point.
And we should never. And we should, as a matter of fact, capture that sense here. You know, I think that we want healthy disagreement, but
Yes.
we also want resolution. We want to be able to come to
course.
closure so we can take on the big important
Of
decisions
course, I
on
think
behalf
we kind
of
of already have that, Mike, whether this document is in place or not.
So to your original question, I think whatever the timeline is, we're probably not going to meet it. I don't even know what the timeline is.
So the most important next piece that comes up is that, in theory, next Friday, 22nd at noon, there's a meeting of the Code of Ethics Task Force.
Okay.
What will we be doing at that meeting? What will be the discussion? What are the next steps? Because you did assemble a group. Now, what are they going to do? So, are they just going to receive what they've heard so far? Comment made about, hey, you know, staff already has this, it should exclude that. I mean, what are we going to do? What are the next steps there? Okay? I think that's the most important thing. We need to communicate to those volunteers who are participating in this as to where do we go from here. That's what I...
You know, there's been an undercurrent the whole time I've been involved in RA and even advance of RA of distrust about lack of transparency and otherwise.
Right.
And so I frankly think that that committee has lots to do. And I think that finalizing a code of conduct or a code of ethics at some point in the
Call it
non...
a code of ethics, since clearly the other word is upsetting, but that's fine.
You know, at some point in the foreseeable future, which would be less than a year, I would like to have the board adopt it. You know, that's what I would like to see happen.
But I don't know if that answered your question, Kate. So what's the guidance to this task force?
I've heard a lot
moving forward?
tonight. So
Yeah.
the question for you, Mike, is what will they be talking about on the 22nd?
Well, I would like to hear a little bit about, you know, timeline, I got it. We should extend the timeline for more conversation, debate about it. The other question that was put before the board, we didn't get to it in the board meeting, was would we be prepared to commit resources to poll the community and either through just an online questionnaire or focus groups on input. And there's costs associated with that. And so I frankly think it's more productive and valuable to have structured
Analytics.
focus groups. I think that would be helpful. So that, to me, to you all, would be my recommendation, but I'm interested in hearing your thoughts.
On this, anytime you have a committee, anytime you have something like this, and it's a piece of paper, and there's all these recommendations, yada, yada, there seems to be a need to come up with something, or else they feel they haven't performed their task, done their duty. So come up with it. In some cases, the best answer is we either need more time to think about it, or, there can be some minor tweaks to things that already exist within our structure that we really don't need a whole new outline of do this, do that, and here's how we define this, and here's how we define that. I think we're running the risk, I'm not saying it's going to happen, we're running the risk of people feeling the need to insert very strict behavioral type of things into a document, which is not only not necessary, it may even keep a lot of good people from ever getting on the board in the future if they see some of this stuff happening. I don't know if I'm making myself clear here, but sometimes doing very little is the answer. Tweaking is the answer, not coming up with a whole new set of standards. And I don't think that we have an ethical problem on this board. I really don't. Even the people that I've disagreed with in the past are no longer on the board. I'm not questioning the ethics there.
I don't think any of us are. I mean,
So-
I don't think the board isn't
I
the
don't want to set up a
problem.
document that opens the door for anybody from the outside or the inside to come in and start
That's exactly what the
hurling
outside
accusations
wants.
at somebody.
This is the
I
problem.
think that's negative.
It is, but it's but this is the problem. So this really all originates out of decisions that the board made in good faith and with lots of effort and everything else, that some members of the community felt were made unethically or with unethical behavior or in
malice,
with malice or I've been accused because I'm an owner at Lake Ann that I had a conflict of interest and I shouldn't have voted on. I didn't vote on it, but my massive condo there at Lake Ann that was, I guess, I don't know. At any rate. So those accusations have been out there, floating out there. Now that I own the coffee house, I guess now someone has accused me of saying somehow like my Tetra decision was connected to the coffee house somehow. I'm not even sure how that, but so there are people who believe that, and so they have no way of coming and saying, based on this, it says here that you would, that the board members are required to disclose financial interest, and Eve didn't disclose financial interest, and so we want that to be reviewed. Right now, we have no way for that to happen, and we have no forum for the community to come in and make that comment. So it's really less about, what passing irritations board members may have with each other from time to time when they're overly passionate or overly whatever. I think that's just kind of, in order to get through a term, you have to kind of, you have a conversation later, you whatever, you forgive people and you move on.
Thank you.
You're welcome. But the community doesn't have a way of saying, hey, I think he's a bum and he did X, Y, and Z. But they have to have that.
But just because somebody says it doesn't have to come into a full-scale investigation either.
I would agree with you, but I think that if that's, but you still can't look like you're trying to hide.
No, we're not trying to hide.
No, of course not. Of course, I'm sorry. But if it all feels that way to the community because they're like, well, they don't even have a code of ethics, then pretty soon they want a standing independent ethics committee who can flog you in front of the public,
I'm much more concerned
whatever.
with a code of ethics being internally used by a majority which overwhelms a minority, especially if the minority is more in touch with the overall community.
You know, it should not be.
That's, yeah, I think that that's, it's, yeah, it's not as, yeah, I think that I totally understand the sort of personal
Sentiment.
feeling, you know, this sort of feels like looks like it's the Ray Waddell document of control. It's not. It's got nothing to do with
anybody
that.
else.
Of course, I know that. I'm just teasing you.
We must facilitate and encourage
So
healthy.
it's about the
discourse.
community needing to come and say, damn that Eve, she bought something and now she's trying to sway a vote to make that to her
You're
benefit.
looking at it from a different perspective than what I had in mind.
Yes.
As long as you agree
Folks,
with mine, I'll agree with you.
I'm
It's
fine.
8:30.
Yeah.
It's Earth at 8:30. I think in terms of my meeting next Friday, I have enough. I would encourage you to attend. We will not record any
Sure, let's talk until 9.
position one way or another with regards to additional resources to solicit input on this, but I would be interested in your thoughts. Last word,
My
Sherry?
thought on that is, at this point, it's way too premature because we don't even know what we're doing to solicit anything or spend any money on anything at this point. I mean, I think we're not there. If we're soliciting input on something that I think a lot of us agree is too much, too big, not the right thing.
That input in itself, may I apologize.
No, please.
That input in itself is very valuable.
Yeah.
That in fact is exactly what Quantum was looking for.
Right, well, we've done
Now,
that,
and
right?
the task force was very specific to them of, hey, we think this should apply to the staff, the board, the committees. That's what the task force said.
Yeah.
So they did what the task force said. Now, if the feedback that is coming is, it's too much, staff already has something, that's very important for the task force to consider, along with
Right.
any other comments, including the ones that we received from our members tonight, for the task force to consider and help, because, I mean, you put them together for a reason,
Right.
right? I mean, the board got its first blush on it back in June, early June. It was the 3rd of June, if I remember correctly. And that's why it ended up on the board agenda, because you guys were like, we got to decide whether we want to spend money or not, because the task force said the night before, on the 2nd of June, we'd like to get community input. Gee, we'd like to do a survey. We talked about it on the Thursday, doing a poll. And Quantum recommended just focus groups. So there was a decision for the board, what direction do you want to go in? Do you not want any more information than what you've already received? Do you want to do a task force? Do you want to do a poll and a task or a focus group? What do you want to do? That's at the point where we are now, and the board needs to make a decision. The committee's going to value, the task force is going to value what they've heard and try and give an opinion to the board of, hey, based on the numbers and what we're seeing, here's our recommendation. I would not discount the body that you've put together who's gone through the process.
Yeah, they've worked hard.
And because I think that you slight them.
I'm not discounting what they have done or will do in the future. I guess my point is, I think this is where I'm trying to get to, is I'm not in support of spending any money on this, any more money on this. I think there are ways to get community input that doesn't cost the Reston Association any more money. And that's where I am today. I could change based on where this evolves into. But at the moment, I would not support spending money on this.
And I'm not advocating that one way or another.
Okay, I just wanted to put that on the record, that that's where I sit today, subject to change.
Last words, Ray?
I made my statement before the Board Operation Committee last night about spending more money on anything, anytime, anywhere for the rest of the year. No, not in support of that. Even if it made some sense, we got to put that on ice for a while and consolidate and see where we are.
Thank you. Eve?
I think I said what I needed to say.
Great. Kate?
You're going to need to decide. The board needs to make the ultimate decision on this. Just point of order is that after the task force meeting next week, you're going to need to figure out what you want the board to decide on, whether to put this on ice, continue forward, whatever the case might be. That needs to, there's a next step, because if we're going to say thank you very much to Quantum Governance, appreciate what you've done for us, that needs to be a decision of the board.
And we're not going to make that decision here, but
Nope,
we'll
we're
discuss
not.
it next week.
But that needs to, I'm just,
I would also,
point of,
I lied.
drag it out, but
I do have another thing to say.
Okay, the last word.
Okay. You know, I don't think, we need to also keep in mind that, draft one doesn't have to be, none of it's cast in concrete. I mean, we can take where we are and edit it down and work on, making it feel more.
I am committed, just so you know.
I know you are,
to
Mike, and I'm
complete-
not, and we've been working on it for a long time.
To complete
Yeah.
the code of ethics.
Yes.
And have the board approve it.
The 1.0 version.
The 1.0, and like all things in governance.
Right.
It represents a point in time.
Right.
And there's a process to revise and adjust in the future.
This thing is just so off. It sounds like a handbook. It's
so
just so off.
there's no action right now.
No
right?
action
So I
right
have-
now.
So I'm not putting anything down here at all. You guys discussed that there's no action coming off of the site.
It's in purgatory for a moment.
Just want to thank members of the community for joining us, Robert for being here as a resource, Ellen, Julie, for all you do to support the community. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
And good night.
We adjourn?
Or without objection?
Motion to
Without
adjourn.
objection.
Without objection.